Hey everyone, and welcome to another installment in the Halo implementation series. With me today, I have my friend, Mr. Halo, Morgan Aspinell, and today we're going to go through talking about creating reports, charts, dashboards, all that kind of stuff. And I know he never gets sick of me saying Mr. Halo. So how are you doing, sir, Mr. Halo?
Yeah, doing very well. Good to be back, Chris.
Good. Yeah, good to have you back. And yeah, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, we're going to be talking about creating reports, dashboards, charts, going through the whole kind of reporting side of Halo, because I think that's an important thing that I hear a lot in implementation about. Okay, well, I got all this data in the system. How do I get it out, and how do I get meaningful information out of the system now? So, so let's talk about reports.
Yeah, for sure. So pretty much so far, we've been talking about building Halo, configuring Halo, and getting the data in Halo and moreover, getting clean data into the system. Now we'll start taking a look at how we can extract bits of information out of the platform via reporting and dashboards. So I'll start off by mentioning that Halo sits on top of a SQL database. So it's a SQL database that we're using behind the scenes. And our reporting capabilities, or our sort of reporting functionality, is effectively a window directly into that database. So I always say that the reporting capabilities in Halo are limited only by one's knowledge of SQL, which is its own hurdle, but the information is there to be obtained. So we'll start off by hopping into the reporting module.
Yeah.
Now, in here, on the left-hand side, we have these different report groups. So, these are it's exactly as it says on the tin. These are groups for our reports. So we can create folders for the different types of reports that we find most useful. What we can also do is right-click on this list to pin a report group to the top of the list. So you can put your favorites at the top, the most important reports at the top of that list, pinned at the top, and then all of the other groups below. Now, within a group, we can see we have these reports in here. And let's take a look at the projects reports. So, as I mentioned, the reporting capabilities in Halo really do sit on top of a query that's running on that database. So what does that query look like? How do we access that query? How do we amend it? And so on. We do that by clicking edit against the report here, and then we've got a few options that are presented on the left-hand side. Of course, we can give our report a name, add a description to provide some further context, put our report into a particular group. And then the data source here, this is where we're actually compiling that report and sort of collating all the information that we do want to report on. Now, we can see here, we've got a query already sort of baked in to this report. And above that, we have this data source option. Now, there's a couple of different configuration options in that data source. So, of course, we can use a custom SQL query, at which point, if you are savvy with SQL and you have an understanding of the schema, which we will put in the comments below, then all systems go. You can create whatever reports you need. However, there are some other options in here to make the report creation a little bit more user-friendly. So firstly, we have these options at the top. These options at the top are referred to as data sources, and data sources themselves are actually pre-baked SQL queries for you to use as soon as you get Halo PSA. So perhaps I just want to get all of my open tickets, and you'll see if I'm picking a data source, I don't need to enter my SQL query into the window below, because we're going to be inheriting the SQL query that sits behind this data source.
Yeah.
Now, the option below that is this fields option. So of course, the data sources are intended to be very broad queries, capturing as many columns as are needed, with as few sort of where clauses or conditions in the report as possible. And the reason for that is because you can actually specify the columns that you want in your report and the conditions that you want to apply to your report without needing to write any SQL. So firstly, in terms of specifying the columns of information that are presented on the report that is subsequently generated, to do that, we go to the field section, click add, and we add the fields that we want to return in this report. And these are the fields that we obtain from our data source. And we'll talk about where the data sources are configured in just a moment. So perhaps I want ticket ID, subject, agent, and status. Now, just like with all the other field list type screens that we see throughout Halo PSA, the reordering of those columns is a case of dragging and dropping. We can also, by clicking the pencil against one of our fields, apply groupings in here and sorting. So again, there's no direct need for writing the SQL to create the report. You can actually set your grouping, set your sorting, set your fields directly from the UI as such. Now, to actually have a look at the report, we need to go to the preview report section, where I can click load report, and there's my report. Now, in terms of adding our sort of conditionality, adding our where clauses, we can do that via the filters section. So our filters are our where clauses. So perhaps I only want to look at the tickets in this list that are, awaiting approval, let's say. So for that, I would add to my filters, and I would say where status includes awaiting approval. Refresh that, and now the report is, as expected, only returning those tickets that are with that status awaiting approval. Cool. We can apply multiple different conditions in here. We can also see that if we are including a date field somewhere in the report, we can filter by that as well. So I don't necessarily need to show that column in here, but as long as it is in the report behind the scenes, we can then filter on that as well. Where we could say, I only want to have a look at the tickets that were logged last month that are awaiting approval, of which there are none. We can get rid of this filter, and we can see there was one ticket that was logged last month.
Last month, yeah. And I know you said that this was your SQL, and it's it's only by your knowledge and imagination of what you can do with SQL. But with these data sources, and I say this to a lot of customers on calls, it's actually very easy and very quick to create a report in Halo without a huge amount of SQL experience because of the data sources. They're pre-baked in, as you say, and these are the data sources that most people would be looking at, and then it's just a matter of deciding which fields you want to show and then also doing your filters. So don't get overwhelmed too much by the fact that it's SQL and don't have SQL experience. It's actually relatively straightforward to to generate these reports, and that's what's so nice about these kind of pre-baked data sources that you guys have on the system already.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And you can also, this is something that I've just thought for the first time now, but you could actually reverse engineer the data sources as well, because we see down on the left-hand side here, we have this data sources section. So it's not a black box, so to speak. It's not that you don't know what the SQL is that is associated to a data source. To see the SQL that is associated to a data source, we click on our data sources section. And then in here, if I want to look at all open tickets, again, that's going to give me the full report. And then if I click edit up top here, there's a SQL query section.
Yeah.
So we can actually see the query that is being used for our respective data source. So, if someone does need to get an understanding of what the name of the ticket status is, we can now see that that is T status desk, and we can see that we need to join T status on faults via this common column here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I think that's the thing is you know, the fact that those data sources are actually there and editable. Also, I think then it does help if you don't have a huge amount of SQL experience, by being able to have those data sources to hand and being able to look at them in Halo. You can then just you know, for a lot of people, it's easier to kind of see what's already there rather than think about how do I actually do this and join these tables together and all that kind of stuff. So you know, so it's and I know a lot of people get overwhelmed by oh my goodness, it's SQL and how am I going to, you know, I don't know SQL, I can't do reporting. It's not that hard, and you know, like I said, a lot of these data sources are there, and you know, there's a bunch of them available either through a consultant or Halo or, you know, whatever. I'm sure we can build some data sources for you know, for common things that people use.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's you know, it's a point of, if the community cumulatively need a data source, then we at Halo will absolutely create one. It's actually something that I'm trying to improve. One of the last projects that I've got for this year is to make a really good set of reports for new trials. So but yeah, you know, any data sources that people are looking for, that think the community could benefit from, then reach out to Chris, reach out to me, and you know, we at Halo will be able to, or Chris or another consultant will be able to help set that up for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so. Yeah, so it's, you know, I was very overwhelmed by it when I first saw it, and I was like, oh, I don't know anything about SQL, and this is going to be hard. But actually, once I started using it, and it's a lot easier than other PSA tools I've seen, you know, that have kind of a crystal report like thing that's really hard to use. So
yeah, and you know, I would say I absolutely agree with you, Chris. I mean, it was the same for me. It was very daunting when I first started making reports. I didn't know much SQL whatsoever, but really, you don't need much more than an understanding of joining tables. You know, we're not doing anything too complicated in these reports. We're just getting columns out of the database, and of course, as it's a relational database, we're just joining different tables together. So
yeah.
Another cool feature that is not, you know, immediately understood or, you know, immediately presented, but is very handy, is, of course, you can add the grouping and the sorting from the field section, but you can actually do that directly from the report as well once it's been rendered. So all I need to do is right click on one of these columns, and I have a couple of options that have been made available to me. Namely, I can very easily group or ungroup by a particular column, at which point I can, you know, expand or collapse said column. I can then, you know, show totals for our columns based on the grouping. So yeah, another handy little Easter egg, I suppose, the ability to right click on these column headers to amend how the report looks and feels.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah, that's always a useful thing. I use that all the time. Actually, I use the grouping to further group the stuff. I actually used to do it through the you know, through the SQL, but then I figured that out, and I was able to kind of group it through here. So
yeah, awesome. So of course, you know, this is all good and well, returning a table of data, but we all love a good chart, right? So of course, we can create different types of graphs and charts for these reports. We could do that from the chart setup over here, at which point we specify our chart. So let's have a look. Let's see, maybe we want to do a count of projects by username. Let's just do something simple like that. So we go to our chart. Here I can specify the chart types. There's a few different options, you know, pie or donut chart, to multiple series or funnel, or yeah, anything like that. So we might want to do a bar chart in this case, at which point I've got some options that have been presented to me. So I think along the x-axis, we're going to want username, And the y-axis, we're going to want project ID. And let's just preview that real quick. Cool. So we can see that actually we're getting the ticket ID for the user. So at that point, what I actually want to do is I want to count my values up here. So of course you can count or you can sum the y-axis values. You can add titles. Just like so. Add a title as well. And even add your own hex codes to change the coloring of the different elements in your chart. So yeah, creating a chart is as simple as that.
Super simple, yeah.
Cool. Now, personally, and we'll get onto this in a little bit more detail shortly, but personally, I would want my data presented on a dashboard, and I would want to view it at my heart's desire. But you might also want to send report metrics to an individual or a set of individuals on a scheduled basis. Perhaps the management team need to get last week's agent utilization reports, or the accounting team need to get a quarterly report looking at the profitability for the quarter that's just passed, something like that. So we can set that up in our scheduled emails section, where in here we specify the individuals that will be receiving the email, subject and body, the schedule for which we want to send this report. So I might want to send it, every Monday as of this Monday. We can see in here again, this screen is very reminiscent of the recurring invoice schedule screen, where we've got the calendar at the top with the blue boxes denoting when this event will trigger, namely when this report will be emailed. And then of course up here we've got some different formats for the report. Do we want to send it in PDF? Do we want to send it CSV? Do we want to send it even if it contains no data? So, for example, you might have a P1 ticket list that's sent out every morning, but you only want that to be sent out if there's an open P1 ticket. So we can specify whether or not we're sending the report if it has any data. Of course, and this is quite an important point actually that I didn't think about. So months ago now, when we started this implementation series, one of the first things that we discussed were agent permissions. And we spoke about how we can set the level of access that an agent has to the platform. Very important point here. If an agent does not have access to invoices, let's say, but does have access to the reporting suite, then in theory, they could get that invoice data out of Halo. So reporting access to the reports module as a whole is a separate permission, but by proxy, having access to the reporting suite means you have access to the database, which means you have access to potentially anything if someone SQL savvy enough gets their hands on it. So you can combat that in a couple of ways. So you can restrict access to reports. If you're restricting access to reports, then you specify the agents that have access to that report and whether or not that is in a read-only state or editable. That is quite a labor-intensive task. So you can also, at report group level, apply access control in here, where you can specify the agent, the role, the team, and the level of access they have to the reports in this group. So something to watch out for there. And then finally, you can, if you so choose, publish your report data to an API endpoint. So this, a long time ago, years ago now, before we had the level of reporting capabilities in Halo, we used to use a tool called Clipfolio, and which is a sort of separate dashboard tool. And to feed Clipfolio data from Halo, we had to publish these reports. And basically what that does is just return the report data in JSON format, just like this. Obviously, at that point, you can do whatever you want with this endpoint. You can plug it into, any tool that you're using to collate your report data. Just bear in mind that I don't think this sits behind any level of authentication. Of course, this is not going to be easy to crack, but if someone does get their hands on it, they have access to the data. So yeah, another point to watch out for.
Yeah, and that tool still exists, by the way. I was actually looking at it the other day.
Yeah. I mean, when we put dashboards into Halo, I was very happy because when I was quite new, I just started to figure out Halo, and then it's like, what's Clipfolio? It's like a whole behemoth in and of itself to figure out how that works.
Yeah, it's kind of a Power BI type thing that you can feed
Yeah.
data sources into. Yeah, it's not bad actually, but
yeah, I mean, it's good. It's powerful for sure. It's very powerful. However, you don't need Clipfolio anymore. You can still use it should you wish. But Halo now has, and has done for a while, has native dashboard capabilities. So, of course, the idea is you build these reports out, add them to your respective groups, and then you're probably going to want to return multiple report metrics on a single page, either for you to track internally or to present to your customers via the self-service portal. And to do that, we would create a dashboard. So let's take a quick look at the dashboard configuration. So for that, we go to configuration, reporting. And then in here, we have a dashboards option. Now, the dashboards have a few different types. So it can be an external link. It can be an iframe. So it could be like a published Power BI report or a published Clipfolio dashboard. That, at that point, you would plug the URL in here, or the dashboard type can be in-app. Now, if the dashboard type is in-app, we have this layout tab. So this layout tab is where we add our different reports onto our dashboard. So to do that, what we want to do is we want to add a number of widgets to the dashboard. Give our widget a name. Let's say project by user. And then we have this type. So there's a few different options for our type. So we can have report data, which just returns the table based on the report that has been rendered. Report chart, that's only applicable if you've configured a chart against your report. But if you have, like we just did with the bar chart, you can then return that chart via a widget. We can also do a report counter, which is basically an aggregate function against something in our report. So we can count records, sum a column, or average a column. If we're summing or averaging a column, we then have to specify the column name as it is in the report, and then Halo will do the rest. And we've got a few other options in here, not directly applicable to projects, but very useful to have on a dashboard. Things like activity feed, feature menu, ticket lists, right? And we end up with something that looks like this, where we've got our sort of feature menu at the top. We've got some reports below. We've got some news articles down here. We've got a ticket list here. And we've got the report table right at the bottom here, and then the recent activity right at the very bottom. And so you can use various different types of widgets to compose your dashboard. So it's not just all raw report data. There's a few cool little ways that you can sort of make these dashboards more generalized. Now, this screen might look quite familiar. It's this screen that we have here. And again, so this is the motivation for including some of those more miscellaneous widget types, the feature menu, the ticket counter, the activity feed. And the reason for that is because you can return these dashboards on the home screen of Halo. There's two, you can set a global default and you can set an agent by agent default as well. So the global default is in config reporting general.
Yep.
Just here as home sheet, dashboard to show on the home screen. And then on an agent by agent basis via the agent preferences, our home screen option can be overridden there. Of course, this is very important because the chances are, and this is my this is part of the project that I mentioned. The idea is that you're going to have a global project management dashboard, a global sales dashboard, a global profitability dashboard, and a global service desk KPI dashboard. And then based on the agents logging into Halo, you know, if we're talking about the COO logging into Halo, they might want to see the service desk dashboard or the projects dashboard, but your sales executive might want to see the global sales dashboard. So again, depending on the individual logging into Halo, they have the dashboard on their home screen returning the data that they need to see.
Yeah, and it's important to say at this point, I mean, even though, you know, the engineer may, or whoever it is who's logging in, the agent may have their dashboard related to them specifically, there is still a menu option in Halo where they can go and see all of those other dashboards if they need to as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You know,
so that's there's a module in our feature menu, namely dashboards.
Yeah, where they can
access. Yeah, that's it.
And that's the thing, and you know, and that's really nice because then you can go, well, the dashboard I need in, you know, in my day-to-day job is this particular one, but actually I also do use the management dashboard, but I don't use it as much, so maybe I can just click in here and then access that dashboard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
A couple of other points to mention. Firstly, you can see that straight in the trials, there's 172 reports immediately there at your disposal. The chances are, if you're looking to track a particular metric, someone else has already asked for that metric to be tracked, and there'll be a report that is either exactly what you need or very close to what you need. You know, at which point you can reach out to support and say, I just need to make this minor tweak to this report. Can you help me out? And we'll get that sorted. But these are the 172 reports that are loaded into trials in your local repository. There's actually a much greater repository that we at Halo have added to over the years, and you can access that via the online repository. And in our online repository, there's 739 reports. So you know, that's a late night for those individuals that are looking to find their reports. Fortunately, we've got search capabilities, so I might want to look for specific asset reports. I might want to look for an expiry alarm. Perhaps we've got a warranty, asset warranty expiry, contract expiry, that kind of stuff. The point being, there's over 700 reports in our online repository. You can find the report that you're looking for, and if it returns the data that you need, if it's something that you want to add to your library, you can simply click this add to my library option. At which point we exit out of the online repository by clicking back into the report section, and there is that report in my local repository.
Yeah, so it's really good to have those, those online reports at your disposal in terms of, and I have a lot of people ask me about how do we edit those reports that are in the online area, and that's exactly as you've just done here, right? Is make that into a local report, and then once it's here in your local reports, you can then edit it. You can do whatever you like with it. You can see the SQL source. You can see everything on that report. So what I do with mine is I tend to only have reports in there that I need, and then if I need another report, I go and find it, on the online repository, bring that in, play around with it, what I need to do, and then either use the report or discard it, and so yeah, it gives you a huge amount of flexibility in terms of what you can do with the reporting.
Yeah, absolutely. One final point to mention, I'm sure we'll do another video on this, maybe focusing on presenting dashboards via the self-service portal. But one final thing to mention in here, in this session, is our composite reports. Again, personally, I would rather return a dashboard to my customers and let them check in on their metrics in real time. However, if a customer is looking for a QBR and they're looking for a PDF of report data to be sent to them on a monthly, quarterly, biannually basis, what we can do for that is we can use our composite report capabilities. So composite reports, to put it plainly, composite reports are HTML templates that have report data loaded into them. So they're configured in the composite report section, believe it or not, where in here we have a few different tabs. Now, the tabs that we see here are quite reminiscent of our PDF template configuration tabs. That's because this is fundamentally a PDF template. There are a couple of distinctions from the standard PDF templates, one of which is this reports table. So, of course, our composite report will be a template composed of individual reports. Those individual reports are added in here. And when you add your reports in here, you have two variables that have been returned for you. One variable, the data variable, will return the table of information based on the report, and the chart variable will return the chart if you've configured a chart.
Yep.
And we add these reports into our composite report, into our PDF template via the Pages tab, where in here we've just got some JavaScript. We've just got some HTML that we've added in, and importantly, we have included the respective variables that we need that correspond to the charts / tables of contents.
Yeah,
and yeah, that's as simple as that.
And this is similar to the way there's another video we recorded a few weeks back, which I'll link to there or wherever it is. I never know which way around I am when I'm looking at the camera, but we'll link to it, where we did the same thing with invoices, where we kind of attached a report onto the back of it. It's the same kind of idea as these composite reports, where you can take that PDF invoice and attach the report directly to that. So if you haven't looked at that, go and have a look at that video. This will kind of make a lot more sense then on what we're trying to do here as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think as an introduction to reports, I think that's more or less all you guys will need to get going. So you've got the online repository of over 700 reports. You can add those reports to your local library. You can create your own custom report groups. You can restrict access to reports based on groups. We've got data sources baked in that you can use to leverage sort of pre-built SQL queries. You've got the ability to sort and group and filter and total. Within the report itself, we can create charts for our reports, send them out on a scheduled basis, and we can compose a series of different reports in either a dashboard that we can return in Halo or the self-service portal. We'll probably look at that next. Or we can return those reports onto a PDF via our composite report capabilities.
Yeah. And one of the things, just to mention in here, and you can see the icons at the top, we've got the import from JSON and the export to JSON as well. So you could actually export this, this whole report kind of as a JSON, and I think you can do that with any of the reports, and then upload that into another version of Halo. So I've done that before with with customers, where I've created a report for them, exported it down to JSON, and they've just gone in and imported the report, and it's worked. So there is that option where if you wanted to, if you were part of a peer group or some kind of community and you wanted to share these reports amongst each other, that would be a really good way to do it. It's kind of, just use that export and import function. So yeah, no, that's great. I think that's an excellent overview of reports. If anyone wants, has any further questions on this or needs any help putting together these reports, I can help you with this. Halo can help you. We can help you kind of get these reports written, and create dashboards and all that kind of thing. What we're going to do on the next video, as Morgan suggested, is we'll talk about how do we get these in front of our customers, right? These are great reports for us as internal, as an MSP, but how do we actually get our customers to see this information? So we'll show you how to publish this onto the client portal. But yeah, I mean, really appreciated, Morgan, as always, and appreciate that, Halo's allowing us to do these videos. And thank you so much for your time, as always, and really appreciate it. So thank you very much, and we'll see you all on the next video.
Yeah, always a pleasure. As long as you keep calling me Mr. Halo, I'll keep turning up. So
I will keep doing it. I'm literally. Did you feel? Literally.
But yeah, no. Seriously, as long as the community are getting value from these, which I believe they are, we will continue to do them, and there's no end in sight. Halo's a massive platform. There's so many things that we haven't discussed. So yeah, there's no stopping this train.
Excellent. Great. Thank you so much again, and we'll see you all on the next one.
Cheers, guys. See you soon.
Bye. Bye-bye.